So today we're unveiling what we call Trustero Intelligence. In short, this empowers users to ask GRC questions in plain language and get targeted contextual answers without having to dig through evidence folders, policy binders, past audit notes, or maybe it's even doing queries into IT systems that you have. This system is great at helping you find needles in haystacks. So it can search through piles and piles of data to get you answers with sourcing. And the way it does this is in a chat-like interface. So anybody who's used a chat system, like a chat GPT or Gemini, this will feel very familiar to you, but it's got some things that make it especially well suited to this GRC domain. So in particular, it has to do with the data that we are able to source, and then your ability to actually configure which data it will go and look at. And so building on that foundation of all the data that we've got in here, we've built this interactive capability that allows you to essentially interrogate all of this GRC data that's in your system and actually have a back and forth dialogue with the system. So I'm going to jump in. Just like any other chat system, you've got previous chats over here. What's quite different about us is you can also lens in on particular things, and I'll show you this a little bit later. But for example, like if I only wanted to interrogate controls or even a particular control, I could do that. If I only wanted to look at policies, I could do that. That can be interesting if I wanted to answer questions, for example, about what I'm doing in theory, right? Which is what the policies are. And let's say I wanted to see what's actually happening, I could limit it to just looking at evidence. And then here in the middle is our chat window. So let's pick up with our IT and DevOps users and start with DevOps. And we're going to ask an open-ended question. So I'm going to have it start out here by telling me about access management controls. And so I say, ask. So really broad question here, and it'll think on it a little bit. As you guys can see, it's got all of the context included here from the other parts of the system. And then it comes back and it will start talking about all the things that are going on in this account. And so you can see your organization has a robust access management structure controlled by stringent identity and access management policy, IAM policy, et cetera, et cetera. And that's what I would expect from an account like this. If we're going to be meeting PCI, HIPAA, ISO 27001, et cetera, you'd figure that you have a lot of this stuff in place. And indeed, it comes back and explains how you're doing that. And then the other thing that's pretty cool about this is it's going to cite its sources. So you don't just have to take its word for it. It's going to say what it leaned on in order to come up with all of this content that it had up here. And so you can see, for example, it's referencing an access control rules control, user access authorized by management control, privilege access rights control, on and on. And if I click on this, it'll actually open up in a new tab and take me over, and I can see the various controls that are present. Okay, so that's the first one. Let's say we want to go a little bit deeper. And I know I've got a controlling system. Let's say in my role, I actually might be accountable for this control. So I'll start by asking a question. Hey, what's the control objective of this control? And it's going to come back and it's going to tell me I've got a control. It's titled secure authentication to implement strong passwords and multi-factor authentication for accessing critical information systems, et cetera, et cetera. And then I can actually see it's citing, that IAM 06 control. If I continue along in this vein, I can say, okay, great. Well, how do I go about operationalizing that control? And now it's going to take into account various aspects of this system, including not just the control itself, but also the systems that we rely on. And so it knows a few facts about this organization. And so it's going to recommend things based on that. And it's going through explaining itself, so implement strong authentication policies, mandatory MFA, configuration enforcement and monitoring. And it's going to be pretty extensive in terms of what it recommends here. So that's a little bit from the DevOps user's perspective and some things that are important to that person.